This is Greg Brown with All We Do.
Isabella Penterick with Solid Stitch Embroidery.
This is Mark Vasilantone with Vastex International.
Dave Pomeroy with NBM National Business Media.
And you are listening to the Two Regular Guys
Podcast.
hosted by Aaron Montgomery
And Terry Combs.
All right. Well, welcome to the show. It's Friday, November 1st, 2019. I'm Terry Combs, and you can find me at terrycombs.com.
And I'm Aaron Montgomery, and you can find me over at aaronmontgomery.info. Today, we're going to be talking to Chad Smith, who's a certified financial planner with Financial Symmetry, and we're going to discuss retirement planning for small businesses. So any of our businesses, any of our listeners here that are small business owners, you definitely want to have, I don't know, you got your yellow legal pad handy, Terry?
I have it ready.
Nice. Okay. Well, I got my notebook. I'm ready to go. So we are ready to capture some great information here. Really excited to talk to him today. And yeah, this is new, Terry. Good to have you back. I'm not sure. Last week, Eric actually ran the board for me. So if this show is just all discombobulated, we'll know why. I don't know what to do with myself, but we've got some regulators checking in. Terry, Eric, as usual, is in the comments there checking in for us. And then the inventor of the regulators, Christine Shreve, happy November. Cindy, who you got to see recently at Printing United, I believe.
I did indeed.
Checking in. Actually from YouTube here this morning, Terry. I don't know if I told you this or not, but we're now able to simulcast to both Facebook and YouTube here. So kind of fun stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. Always something new.
Yeah, definitely. So good stuff there. All right, Terry, and yeah, we could go on forever, Sharon. Good. Appreciate you checking in with us this morning. Terry, before we get started, though, as I just kind of mentioned, you were recently at the Printing United. And so maybe start us off by just give us a little quick recap of that. And then I know you have some folks you want to give a shout out to. So
sure.
Looking forward to hearing what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. The Printing United at former SGIA, for any listeners who are curious what that is. And, Aaron, I have to confess, I didn't get the opportunity to walk the show at all. we were staying at a hotel that happened to be right in the middle of where the tornado went through Sunday night. And luckily we had power, but a lot of places around didn't. Going to the convention center, roofs off houses and buildings, and it was quite a mess. And the difficulty we had was all the stoplights were out, and it should have taken us about 15 or 20 minutes. Took us about an hour every day to get in because, everybody, they had a big stop sign in the middle of the street. And so people would come up and I'm talking about 5 lanes of traffic coming up, trying to go, then 5 lanes the other way, trying to go. And it was quite the nightmare. But yeah, the show was steady. And I know at Equipment Zone, we were across the aisle from the folks at Epson, and it's turning into from a vendor standpoint, turning into a very positive show sales wise.
Okay.
But and I get this to speak with some people, but we would wheel in about 5 minutes before the show opened because it's a 9 to 5 show, and and so I really had good intentions of going around seeing a lot of people. I didn't get to any of the luncheons or anything. We were just too darn busy at our booth. But I'm interested to see what other people thought of the show. Actually, and hopefully we'll be able to get some comments from anybody that was in attendance. And I do have a shout out. I did see some of the regulators that come by that we've shouted out to before. But Charles and Christine Waros at Ragged Apparel in Las Cruces, New Mexico, came by to say hello and say that they are regular listeners of the Two Regular Guys. So we appreciate you and all the regulators that stop by to say hello. And we hope to mention all of you at some point. So
nice. Cool. So Terry, how big, was it? I heard that the actual footprint was just massive this year.
It was a massive show. And it's interesting because a lot of folks said, well, we weren't very busy for part of it. And I think it's just, I think there were 30,000 people, but spread out so thin that sometimes it felt like we weren't very busy, but just people everywhere.
Yeah. And was there some like massive pieces of equipment there too? I would normally you see some things that look like buses.
there was a lot of equipment, and this year, Aaron, they did pardon me, they did a check-in, check-out kind of deal where your crates were going to be at your booth by this date at this time, and had to be out of your booth by this date and this time, and wow. Our good friend of the show, Hawkeye, with Brother, they found out that their check-in and check out, have the crates out of the booth was happened before they got there. So
oh boy,
I never quite heard how they worked that out. But ours at Equipment Zone, it was perfect timing for us. Monday morning, and had to be out by Tuesday afternoon, and the show started on Wednesday. So, but it was interesting.
Yeah, definitely making some changes. You gotta try new things, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. So
exactly
nice.
Right. Exactly
cool.
Right.
All right. Well, good stuff. Well, let's keep moving forward here then, Terry. And like you said, we'll hope to get some comments and feedback, and maybe get some folks from Printing United's SGIA on the show to discuss how that inaugural event went. So
absolutely
we'll look to do that.
Yeah, but Aaron, before we dive in, we want to thank everyone for checking into the Two Regular Guys podcast. If you're listening to the podcast version, we would appreciate it if you would share with friends, and so they can become regulators too. But if you would give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you're listening, that would be much appreciated. And we're also looking for guests all the time on the show. If you or anyone would like to join us, go to calendly.com, and we'll put it up on the screen /2, the number 2 Regular Guys. And if you're joining us on the live feed via Facebook, or YouTube, we would love your interaction. Want to hear your comments and questions on the discussion, and give us a shout out to let folks know that you tuned in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's hear a word from our sponsor, Impressions Expo, and they're getting geared up for Long Beach 2020 Impressions Expo. So here they are.
What is Impressions Expo? Impressions Expo, formerly ISS, is the premier trade show dedicated to the imprinted and decorated apparel industry. 5 shows are produced annually in each region of the U.S., including Long Beach, California, Atlantic City, New Jersey, Orlando, Florida, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Fort Worth, Texas. Each of the 5 annual shows also features over 30 seminars and hands-on workshops in categories such as screen printing, embroidery, digitizing, digital decorating, and much more. Visit impressionsexpo.com for more details and see us at the shows in 2020. Exclusively for Two Regular Guys listeners, the Regulators, use the promo code Regular Guys IE. Again, that is Regular Guys IE for a free Expo Pass.
All right. Well, thanks again to Impressions Expo. Aaron, the folks at Impressions Expo are doing something a little new this year, this coming year, 2020. It's there are going to be quite a few seminars the day before the show opens, and not just those day-long ones that they've done in the past. I'm doing an hour-and-a-half seminar on 10 things you should know about direct-to-garment printing, but it's the day before, and that's going to give people the opportunity to spend more time on the show floor, and to be honest, for me to be able to not be out of my booth, and they're also doing some 45-minute seminars, free seminars on the show floor this year as well. So that's going to be pretty exciting, and I love when these shows try to change things up a little bit, and as you said, try some things that work or don't work. But
exactly.
But,
I gotta try.
I think so, and I think it's going to be pretty cool.
Nice. Excellent. Well, that sounds good. So I'm assuming they didn't pick you for the 45-minute one, so that's just not enough time.
I'm actually doing a 45-minute one too.
Darn it. Okay. Yeah, and if they go down to 30, though, I'm just not sure that's going to be possible.
I know the intros, it'll be like last year. I'll have to go around and just shake everybody's hand before I go on.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, again, speaking of stretching it out, let's Let's real quick recap the Reggie Awards categories here. Terry, we've had fantastic response so far as the nominations go. And last I checked, I think we were over 200 nominations so far.
Wow.
Submitted. So again, really appreciate all that. And we will recognize every single person that's nominated, even if they don't make it to the voting stage there. So the top 5 in each category will be voted on after November 15th. And so we're accepting nominations until November 14th at 5 p.m. Central Time. And Eric just put up the link there to go to just enter your nominations. But just give us the quick rundown of the 10 categories, and then we'll get our guest in here, Terry.
Absolutely. Number 1, best new product. Number 2, best sales or customer service representative. Number 3, the company that provides the best customer service. Number 4, best online educational content. Number 5, best industry educator. Number 6, best industry trade show. Number 7, best Facebook or LinkedIn community or group. Number 8, most influential young star, new category from last year. Yep. Number 9, best guest on the Two Regular Guys podcast. And number 10, best ambassador for the industry. So those are our 10 categories. Get out there and make your nominations. And hey, you don't have to vote for each one. If there's just one category you're interested in, just go in there and put someone's name or a company name up, and we will recognize them here in a couple of weeks.
All right. Well, fantastic. All right, Terry. Well, let's get into what we're here to talk about today. Some financial planning, some retirement planning, so to speak, for the small businesses out there, for you guys, the regulators. Here's some things to think about. And Chad is actually going to be available as a best guest nominee potential. So
there you go.
We're gonna put the pressure on here, Chad. Now, Chad has his own podcast, and we're really excited to talk to him. In fact, let's do that, Terry, if you're ready. So we've got here with us, Chad is a partner at Financial Symmetry and is a certified financial planner with more than 20 years of experience in the financial services industry. He specializes in helping employees and executives of technology companies in the triangle, making the best decisions with their corporate benefits program. He also enjoys helping those close to retirement with the unique tax saving strategies available to them. So welcome into the show, Chad.
Thanks. It's wonderful to be in the regulator community.
There you go. You are part of the community now. And I'm going to just real quick tell us what the triangle is for those of us that are not familiar with your area.
So we're located in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it's known as the Research Triangle part because there's Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. And you're probably more familiar with some of the universities around, right? NC State, I'll start with because that's my university. But probably a lot of people are more familiar with University of North Carolina and Duke University in our area. So a lot of research here, and technology companies have moved in the last 20 years. So there's a lot of activity, and it's a fun place to be.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Okay, cool.
On Tuesday, the Kansas Jayhawks will be playing Duke on Tuesday night. So
there you go. So you're familiar with old Roy Williams, right?
I am indeed. I'm a Jayhawk fan.
Yeah, people get into college basketball around here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Chad, after listening to one of your podcasts, I know you love stats. Mm-hmm. So let's start with some retirement stats for small businesses.
Yeah, we get excited about kind of setting things up in our show, right? And we're one of those we're a group of nerds here that love financial planning. So we try to get a feel for the landscape of what we're talking about, right? So if we're talking about small businesses in this aspect, you're talking really about 30 million small businesses across America, right? And that represents, is kind of a shocking number. 99.7% of all U.S. firms are small businesses. It's just that small percentage are very large corporations, right?
Yeah, interesting.
And there's a wide definition. We'll talk about what that is in a little bit, but the kind of alarming thing is that only 45% of workers at companies with 50 employees or less have access to a retirement plan, right? That's from the Small Business Administration. And then of that, only around 30% of employees participate in those plans. So we're going to talk through the different types of retirement plans, but just generally that's, something to think through, because in the end, we're excited about helping people save more so they're set up to make the retirement decision when they do down the road.
Yeah.
And workers that do have access to a plan are 15 times more likely to save for retirement when they have when it's payroll deducted. So, gotcha. I mean, that's one of those things, and it's just tough sometimes for small business owners, I think, to think through that. We'll talk about those reasons.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, so tell us, describe what is a small business then?
Yeah.
What's the category there? How does that break down?
So there's a wide definition, of different types. I mean, some measure up to 1,500 employees, which is kind of wild because it doesn't feel like that's a small business.
Yeah.
And then the revenue can range as well. I saw some stats from Small Business Administration range all the way up to 30 million in revenue can be considered a small business. So, there's a big range there of where you could fall in that umbrella. But I mean, we're kind of focused on the 50 to 100. I think that for this conversation, we'd be talking about and under of employees.
Okay.
And small businesses really with fewer than 20 employees make up about 90% of U.S. businesses.
Okay.
Wow. And then on top of that, around 23 million businesses in the United States have no employees at all. So, and there's other benefits and resources you can take advantage of if you are a solopreneur, so to speak, or sole proprietorship.
Okay.
So.
All right. Hey, Terry, real quick. I wanted to share what Christine had posted here. Said financial planning nerds are very necessary. Those of us who aren't that species of nerd desperately need advice on how to plan for the future when it comes to finances. So yes, that's why we have Chad here, Christine. So we are pretty excited about this. All right, Terry, go ahead. Sorry.
Most of us and our listeners are some form of nerds. So Chad.
That's true.
Yeah. We got
you should have
nerds,
the chicken wing across the mic as your logo. So
that says a lot about us. Yeah.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah. Well, so Chad, what are some of the benefits of funding a small business retirement plan?
Okay. So how much time do we have?
Much as you want.
Just go. Bring it. Yeah.
In all seriousness, I mean, this is super important because we're a small business too, right? And as a small business, you get bogged down sometimes in setting salaries and dealing with hours and just pounding the pavement, trying to get new business, right? And marketing. So you're spending all this time, and it's tough to think about how to set these things up. So I think the things that we hear and the major benefits, I guess, is what I see for business owners is it's a way to sock away a lot of tax efficient savings for not only the owner, but for employees as well, because many times when you're moving to that next stage of trying to attract talent and keep employees, this is a big benefit to have. I think it was around 50% of employees in one study I read said that having an employee benefit plan or a retirement plan was a key reason and why they stay at an employer. So, one, if you're a solopreneur or sole proprietorship, it's huge for your tax savings down the road. And if you have employees, then it's an attraction tool for that. But I will add, and this is the reason I actually got into finance, the magic of what's known as the eighth wonder of the world, compound interest, right? Because a retirement plan and we're going to talk through the details, but it allows you to basically have savings that's growing tax deferred. And then it's growing at a compounding rate. And it can really be, I mean, if you look at some calculations, like I was pulling up one, and this is one of the ones that kind of interested me in finance to begin with. If you're 20 years old and you're saving $300 a month, and that's it, like you just save $300 a month for about 45 years, you'll have over $1 million if you have a 7% rate of return, right? Wow. So I heard that and I thought, okay, this is interesting. Like, if you can just stick to a certain habit, and that's not to mention that that savings could increase over time, which it could if your income does and your business is profitable, which is the goal, I think, for small businesses. So.
Typically, yes. Nice. Cool. So I mean, obviously, there's a ton of great reasons. You just gave us a ton of great reasons that this is something we need to be focused on. So what do you think drives, kind of causes small businesses to not have retirement plans in place?
Yeah. So those employers, like I said, they're investing in new equipment. They're thinking about salaries. They're looking at expanding to new locations, spending money on the marketing. And in the end, those things can take precedence, right? And then you're spending a lot of time doing that. So then you get overwhelmed and think, man, I don't have time to sit down and look at this, because you hear all of these different options. You're not sure which direction to go. it can be overwhelming because there is a lot of plan options. There's a lot of different designs that can fit your particular business. And I think in the end, a business owner often feels my time is spent better working on the business, right? And managing people, or managing myself if it's just you and managing your schedule. And then because there's a lot of admin frustrations with certain aspects of plans, and also it can be expensive if you're picking a certain type of plan. So I think those are the barriers to entry. Some of those are myths, right? It's just things that get circulated probably in social conversations that people get scared of. But I think those
how about retirement's a lifetime away, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about myself, but
that is an aspect across all financial planning, really, right? Immediate gratification versus delayed savings is very difficult. So we talk about that a lot. Yes.
For sure. Well, like you said, that 20-year-old that puts away the $300, that sounds all well and good, but 20-year-olds thinking about putting away $300 are few and far between, as you can tell with most people once they get to, our age and beyond.
And in reality, that's why a lot of people hear something like that maybe, and they're like, I can't come up with it now, so I'm just not going to start. But in the best situation, you start with small amounts, and then you do increase those contributions over time, and it really adds up.
Okay. All right. Well, so Terry, let's just real quick, let's break in here because I want some of that stuff to sink in for folks here, and then let's come back, Chad, and we'll get into some details of like, okay, so now that we kind of understand why, how do we start making some of this stuff happen? So does that sound good?
Absolutely.
All right, Terry. Well, you want to talk to us about Printavo real quick, and we will come on back here.
All right, very good. Well, let's talk organization. Keeping your shop organized is crucial to growing your screen printing business. Printavo helps thousands of shops keep their team on the same page and look professional to their customers. If you're always getting tapped on the shoulder with questions, missing order due dates, or just ready to get to the next step in your shop, Printavo is your solution. Printavo allows shops to create consistent quotes, automate quote and art approvals, schedule jobs, collect payments, and now create online stores, all inside one platform. Being cloud-based, you can even use Printavo from home or from with remote employees as well. Printavo has a free trial and demo, which you can sign up for at their website, printavo.com.
Excellent. All right, cool. Well, thank you very much for the support there, Printavo. And let me get to the right picture back here. All right. So again, let's dive in and let's actually get into like, how do we start doing this then? So we know we need to think about this a little bit more than we already do.
Yeah. So Chad, what are some of the retirement options available for a small business?
So this is where it gets interesting. You got multiple versions of, at a high level, multiple versions of IRAs, individual retirement accounts, in different forms, and we'll talk through those. And then you have different 401k options in general, right, for small businesses. And all of these have different tax saving features, different funding timelines, different dates of when you need to set them up, and different components for if you have employees or not, right? Because some are funded entirely by employer contributions. Some are funded entirely by employee contributions, and a combination of both. So I think it gets tough because, you have these different acronyms too, right? That you're dealing with. And we'll walk through some of these examples and then maybe even give some case studies, case studies of how that works. Okay,
perfect. Well, so within that, maybe give us a breakdown of those options. And I think, like I said, the acronyms are there. You've got some different things that you got to kind of figure out, and not everybody's case is going to be the same. So I'm guessing ideally you just need to talk to a financial planner would be the best way to go, obviously. But like you said, if you could give us some case studies, so maybe that helps them understand what questions they need to be asking about their business.
Yep. So you can think about it as kind of a ladder that we're climbing. Okay. And the ladder, it grows in terms of contribution amounts and complexity. So I'll start, and this is just to give you some education around the types of options. And then, of course, if you're a listener, you can think through kind of your own situation and say, maybe this could be right. And then talking to a financial advisor, I think, is the right call there to help you, and your CPA to put it into place. But we'll start with just a regular IRA, a traditional IRA, right? So that gives you a tax deduction now. It is not actually linked to your employer. So this is just an option that you can put up to $6,000 in. Or if you're over 50, a lot of these accounts, if you're over 50, you have a catch-up contribution, right? So that's another $1,000 you can put in. But it's very flexible, right? You can invest in a lot of different things. And you can, along with this and the next option I'm going to talk about, you can actually go back in time after the end of the year to contribute to it. You have all your way to your tax deadline. So Back to the Future was one of my favorite movies growing up, right? It's like you can take
time traveling is so cool.
and contribute. So if you're doing your taxes, and a lot of times small business owners, when they're doing their taxes, there's options. They see, what? That's my tax bill. Is there something I can do here, right? And that's an opportunity where, now, again, that's $6,000, right? So that's a lower contribution. That's on the bottom kind of that, the ladder that we're climbing. So then the next IRA that you're looking at option would be a SEP IRA, right? Now this primarily is going to be for a self-employed owner. And we call it a supercharged IRA because the contribution limits are much higher. It can go all the way up to $56,000 for a calendar year, right? But you have until the tax deadline of the following year to put a contribution in. So this is also for the procrastinators, right? If you don't get it in before the end of the year, then this is an option for you. It's very flexible on contributions. But here's the big but. If you have employees, it's not necessarily the best option for you because you have to put in the same percentage for all employees. If you're using a SEP IRA, that's a SEP IRA. And there's certain requirements for those employees. If they're over 21, they've worked 3 out of the last 5 years and they've earned over $600, right? But that's a pretty low barrier for a type of an employee. So yeah, that can get expensive if you have employees. So when I said the $56,000, you can actually do up to 25% of your net compensation or $56,000, right? So it can be less than that if 25% of your compensation is less than 56. And there's minimal admin cost with this. So on the IRA side, really there's a lot of ease in setting these things up and there's minimal admin costs, right? When we move to the 401ks, we'll talk through some of the more challenging subjects there on the side of reporting and costs. So that's the second step, right? So you're moving up the ladder. You start with the traditional IRA. I will mention, let me go back a step because I didn't mention the aspect of the after tax yet tax-free savings in a Roth IRA, right? And that's a favorite of a lot of people, but that actually can be, it's kind of on the same level as the traditional IRA in terms of the contribution amount that you can make, but you don't get a tax deduction when you're putting a contribution into a Roth IRA. Okay.
Gotcha.
So that's the key difference of that first one, but that is an option for you there. All right, moving along, the SEP IRA, then we move on up and we're talking about what sounds like an easy plan to put together. It's called a simple IRA.
There you go.
Right?
Simple, right?
So this is for those small businesses and employers that want the structure of a 401k at a lower cost and lower contribution limits, essentially. So it works better for an employer if they have employees a lot of times, right? The contribution limits are $13,000 a year in 2019. And then you have a catch up potentially that you can do as well if you're over 50, as with all of these. But there's low admin responsibilities. The stipulation here is the matching, right? So you have a choice to make if you can match your employees' contributions. And you have two different choices. You can choose to match up to 3% of your employee's salary if they make it, right? If they don't make it, you don't have to match it. So that's an option. And so if you're an employer with a lot of young employees, and you're just kind of wanting to dip your toe in the water and get something started, this might be a good option for you, right? Because the young employees, they may not contribute a whole lot, but you're offering an option. And then you may not have to match them, right? If they don't make those contributions. The other option is you could just choose 2% match and you're required to do it. So it's less than the 3, right? If all your employees do up to the 3, and they're going to do that, or you think they will, then you'd want to choose the 2% potentially, right? it's all about what your goal is in the end.
Sure.
I mean, you want to max tax savings for you, but if you're also really concerned about your employees, then that's something you want to think through, right? And consider what that match could look like. Okay. So again, with this low admin costs, low startup costs, no annual filing requirements like you do with 401ks. So there's just less headaches involved in this, right? So that can be a good option if you're just getting started. But it's lower contribution limits than our next option we're going to talk about as we're moving up that ladder. Okay. And this is probably the one that most people are familiar with. And there's a couple different options of this, and it's the 401k, right? It's also called a defined contribution plan. And the first option we'll talk about is the solo 401k. But with all of these options, you have around $19,000 in 2019 that you can put in as an employee. Okay. And I know I'm talking a lot and I'm moving through this pretty fast.
This is good. This is really great. Yeah, no, keep it going. I'm sure people are just writing like crazy right now, but you can go back and listen to it later. That's the great part about it.
I know, I'm trying to break it down simply, but it's complex, because there's a lot of different contributions, and they increase each year too. So with inflation, sometimes there's adjustments, right? So next year it could be more than 19,000 potentially, but that's what you have to do as an employee on the employee side of the defined contribution plans. Oh, one thing I did not mention on the SEP, if I didn't make it clear on the SEP IRA, it's all employer contributions into that SEP, right? Okay. And you have to do the same percentage for your employees, but it's all employer contributions. The employee does not make contributions to the SEP IRA. So that's a key difference there.
Yeah, definitely.
But in the 401k, you got the option to do that 19,000 as an employee, and then you'll have a matching potentially, right? Now, you also have the potential to take loans in a 401k. That's not something we put a lot of emphasis on because ideally you're trying to save money and not take loans from your 401k. But that is one option that you have in a 401k that's different than in the IRA options. And then you can also choose to make employee contributions to a Roth 401k option, right? Like we were talking about the Roth IRA. Yeah. You also have the option to do that for the 401k. That's not options that you have in the SEP, right? Or the simple IRA. So that's another distinction there that you have potentially to do after-tax employee contributions. Okay. So if I didn't confuse you there, some of that.
I think I'm following along. So hopefully.
We'll talk through the solo 401k first. Now, this is an option that's very attractive to solo entrepreneurs, right? Sole proprietorships, because you can have a 401k for you and your spouse. So you can put up to $19,000 in if your spouse is on the payroll, that is, right? Up to the $19,000 if you're under 50, more than that with the $6,000 catch up as well. And then you can also do an employer contribution of 25% of your compensation. As it's defined by the plan, there's some calculations in there, but basically it works out to around 25% of your compensation on top of the $19,000 as an employer contribution, right? All the way up to $56,000. So again, it's a nice option that you can save actually more in. And if you're over 50, that catch-up contribution actually equals more than that and is more than the SEP IRA, right? So the one catch with this is that it has to be open by December 31st of the calendar year. Remember, I said you could go back in time with the SEP IRA. Yeah. With this one, technically you can, but you have to open it by December 31st. You can go back and put your employer contribution into the solo 401k after the end of the year. So there's some flexibility with that, but this has become a very attractive option. And in some surveys I've seen, this is now the most popular option for sole proprietorships, right? So certainly a nice option to think about, higher contribution amounts, a little more flexibility there. And then you move up to, you have employees, right? Yeah. Not just you anymore. Okay. Yeah. So the simple IRA is one of your options if you have employees. That can be a good option, but lower contribution limits. You can get into these areas of kind of two different 401ks, right? And this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, and you'd want to talk to a financial advisor about your best option. But there's what's known as a safe harbor 401k. And this is good for businesses where you have a few high earning employees or a portion of them that are high earning, because you avoid some testing. right? There's some complicated testing that's involved in trying to make sure everybody has a fair opportunity to contribute the max into a 401k. The catch with these safe harbor plans is that you have to is on the match, similar to how it is in the simple IRA. You can either choose to do a 3% required match, right? Similar to how it was in the simple IRA, or you can choose to do a 4% match. And then that's an elective one, right? That's like if your employees don't contribute up to that level, you don't have to make that 4% contribution, right? So there's some, and you're trying to, when you're thinking through this as an employer, some people get short-sighted and think, okay, well, this is just what I can do right now, but you're trying to forecast 3 to 5 years down the road and think, what is the profitability going to look like? What are my goals at that point? And ideally, if you have some good projections, you can make a better decision around which option might be best for you. And that's where these 401k plans could be a better option if you project that you're going to have a good revenue growth and good profitability down the road. Okay. Now, so that safe harbor plan is there because there's not as much testing. It's a little simpler on the side of things of having a full-blown 401k, but there is more cost involved, right? There's annual filings that you have to do. There's admin fees. So it's stepping it up a notch. Could be in the neighborhood of anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000, maybe even a little bit more than that, depending on the provider that you choose to work with, because you do need, in most situations, what's called a third-party administrator to help you set this up and do some of that, because you're not going to want to spend time doing the testing and the admin work and the things required there. So over and above a safe harbor 401k is just a regular traditional 401k. And that's where you get more flexibility, right? You have the option to kind of put some eligibility requirements around it. You could put vesting requirements, like people have to work there for a certain amount of time before they're able to get all of the employer contributions. There could be a higher match or a flexible match. You could stop the match at some point in time. But this is where it gets more expensive. And, because there's this testing that goes on throughout the year and monitoring. You're having actuaries calculate what matches should be and how they should be. And so you'd really want some help in putting that together with a financial advisor, I would argue, and a third-party administrator. And many of the large brokerage firms can help you do that. And that's kind of where you would start with some of that. But with the simple IRA and with this 401k, either the safe harbor or the traditional 401k, you have to start it by October 1st. And the reason for that is because you want to give your people time to make the contributions before the end of the year for the employee. So that's a mouthful. So that's kind of the spectrum of the ladder. And there is one other option if you're I would argue for the older people that have been really successful and have a lot of money that they want to sock into a retirement plan for small business. It's known as a defined benefit plan. I won't go into too much detail there, but that's basically where you're defining a certain benefit. It's like a pension, right? It's what's known as a pension. And a lot of those are going by the wayside now, but that's really gets more complicated. And I would say that if you were interested in that, you'd probably need to sit down and talk with an advisor.
Yeah.
Chad, when you mentioned, and you said you don't like to talk about it much, about taking a loan against a 401k, aren't there some stipulations about what you can take a loan for, like education, that sort of thing?
Yeah, there's some, and the major thing with a 401k loan is, and the danger, I would say, the big danger is that if you leave your employer, then you're forced to pay it all back at that point in time.
Oh.
Right? Yeah. So that, and it's got to be payroll deducted to pay it back too. So it's one of those where you got to be careful and really dig into some of the details there. I mean, we actually don't. We very rarely, if ever, recommend a 401k loan. But, sometimes cash flow can be tight. And if you saved in a 401k and business gets rough, then there's some opportunities there to use that. But yeah, it's something that you want to make sure you understand all the details about.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, Chad, a lot of our listeners have a day job, so to speak, and that has maybe a retirement plan and a decorating business on the side. What are some of the options for somebody that's doing their side gig?
We call it a side hustle in our
side hustle.
There we go.
You go.
Side hustle, like it. Yeah.
It does get interesting, and there's some options here, but the first question is to understand, is it an unrelated employer, right? Are they unrelated to your day job? And if it is, then that's when it gets interesting, because you can, if you have a nice income, because for example, some people have a website, right? Yeah. As a second business. And that's where, if it's unrelated to your other business, then you could potentially have a SEP IRA that you could fund. Like you may have a 401k with your day job, right? Or a retirement plan with your day job. You could have a separate SEP IRA for that side hustle. And even in some situations, you could have a solo 401k, a separate solo 401k. However, there are contribution limits for employees. It's called the 415. It's the IRS code 415 contribution limits, where you can only put in that 19,000 as an employee to your 401k across all 401ks, right? So, but in the solo 401k, you could do potentially an employer contribution into that other solo 401k if you've maxed out your 401k contribution at work, so to speak, right? So yeah, that could give you up to 56,000 potentially, depending on your revenue. It has to be 25% of that if you're talking about a SEP, and really a solo 401k. But that is a nice option, but you really do need to understand if it falls in, because essentially if it's part of this what's known as a controlled group or a similar employee, like if you're working for an employer that owns 80% of this subsidiary that you're doing that your side hustle for, then that gets hairy. You can't really do two different plans. So you want to understand the details behind it. But there are opportunities to save more for retirement if you have the side hustle, right?
the side hustle. Yeah. In fact, the cricket, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
We talked about that before the show. So
yeah,
you're adjacent to our industry right there.
There you go. I was telling Aaron and Terry earlier, my wife is, she has a cricket. She's dipping her toe in the water, I guess, of your world, so to speak.
You're going to be pulling into your garage someday and see a big embroidery machine in there.
Nice.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Hey, Chad, we've got a quick question from a listener here, from Christine. She says, how do they determine whether your day job is a side hustle are connected? Whether your day job and your side hustle are connected? For instance, Christine works in the garment decorating industry, but also writes for magazines in the industry as a side hustle. Is that considered connected?
So you'd have to understand the ownership structure. So you work in the garment company. If the garment company owns over 80% of the magazine, then that would be considered a controlled group. So there's some stipulations there. They're known as, it gets pretty detailed, like a parent subsidiary group or a brother sister group, right, of ownership. And there's some numbers involved, but you would need to talk to an accountant, a CPA, about that to just investigate it, to make sure you're safe in doing that. And because you'd probably want to have the financial advisor or the CPA's help in setting up the plan anyway, to fund. So I would look a little bit deeper into that, just to cross your T's and dot your I's.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Good. Okay. So we've already kind of talked about some of the things that the financial advisor can do for you, but tell us a little bit about what you guys do, and what are those services that small businesses should be looking for when they're trying to kind of work with somebody like yourself.
So in most situations, we work with individuals, families, and small business owners. And I think the thing that we see throughout generally is being overwhelmed and not getting started early enough. We hear often when people will come in and work through the process of kind of getting a snapshot view, first of all, of a financial plan, just to see kind of where you are and what's projecting to happen going forward. Yeah. And then actually what you're spending and how those all interrelate. We hear afterwards, man, I wish I would have taken a look at this 10 years earlier. Yeah. And, and it's just a pain point. It's like, sometimes I don't want to group us in the same area as dentists, but sometimes you're like, you dread going to the dentist, but you need to, and you do, right? Because you don't want to have infections in your mouth. And so we're trying to prevent financial infections, right? and the goal is our goal is to help people see that financial planning can be fun, maybe. If you're looking at it from the perspective of what can be versus what I have to do, I think it can change your perspective, and that's how we approach it. Because in our industry, I think there's also been it's tough to decipher what a good financial advisor is, right? Because you have certain people, brokers and commission salespeople in the past, where you were a little bit confused on where their interests aligned. And now in our industry, we have a lot of fee-only financial advisors who only get paid by clients. And that's what we do, right? And we're fiduciaries. We're forced to put your interests first. And I think if you're pursuing financial advice, you really want to work with somebody who is sitting on the same side of the table as you and really is only paid by you, right? So their interest is going to be aligned with you. They can be objective in whatever options they use for you. Because a lot of these things we talked about today, I've heard another example that I liked. This is kind of like the luggage, right? All of these retirement plans are the luggage. And then you got to think about the clothes that you have inside of the luggage. The clothes are the investments, right? And what kind of investments you have in that luggage is important. But you got to understand, when do you need money? What is your risk tolerance? How do you feel about investing? How are you going to be able to lose sleep at night because you have the wrong type of investments? And to understand that, you got to get pretty deep with people in conversations. And that's the part I love, because you really get to know people on a deep level.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. It's that kind of where, because you've got a great podcast, and so maybe tell people a little bit about that. Is that kind of where that came from? Just kind of sharing that information, kind of dispelling the myths, in a way?
Yeah. We would get questions from clients all the time, or prospects, and we had a blog, early on, and we would write articles. But we started to realize, and then I started to see it in my own life. I liked listening to podcasts. Yeah. And so I thought, well, if I like it, there's got to be others out there that do. So we started to basically answer questions on our podcast about specific financial planning topics or financial advice. And we try to go deep into a certain planning opportunity. I have a co-host, generally Mike Eklund, and then other advisors here as well hop on it with me. And we just have a good time talking through these issues and trying to answer questions in a conversational way that keeps it simple, or as simple as we can, to help you understand, or just to kind of make you think about, well, maybe that, there you go. That's our,
got it up on the screen there for those listening on the video side here. Yep.
Yeah. So some examples of what we just talked about recently, like, receiving an IRS letter. How do you feel? How do you deal with that? Have you ever been in a timeshare situation? And then we talk a lot about retirement, because the goal, our tagline is balancing today with retirement, right? So that you can enjoy things today, but you're still taking the moves that you need to, the necessary steps to make you prepared for retirement later on down the road. And there's just a lot of neat tools to help you do that. But a lot of times people just don't have the time to deal with it, and they get overwhelmed. So
I'm going to guess you're not recommending a timeshare, but
it was one of our October scary financial stories. So
I love it. Well, this has been awesome, Chad. Tell our listeners how they can reach out to you.
So that's one way, financialsymmetry.com. That's the name of our company. Okay. You can go there. But we just started also doing YouTube videos, short YouTube videos. So we have a YouTube channel. But if you go to the bottom of our website there, you can find the different social media aspects right there. Those little blocks at the bottom, and the contact us, and you can get in touch with us or see kind of what we're talking about. And then you can contact us with our contact information. That's on the About page at the very top.
Chad, before we let you go, we got one more question from our audience here. Do you have any advice about choosing a financial planner? I know particularly for women, finding someone who takes you seriously can be an issue.
Great question. Yep. And I would first start with a website called NAPFA.org, NAPFA. And that is the National Association of Personal Financial Advisors, and they are fee-only advisors. So those are the ones that put your interest first. They're fiduciaries. They've been screened. So you can search your area. There's a lot of different options. You can also look at the FPA, but that's going to have a wider net to look at. So I would start with NAPFA. That's a good starting place. And then they also have checklists that you could download for questions to ask a financial advisor, because you really want to go pretty deep and make sure that it's a good fit, right? Yeah. Because ideally it's going to be a long-term relationship, and they're going to know a lot of things about you, and you want to make sure that their interest is aligned with yours.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So, Chad, you guys, your services, I mean, do you guys just work in your area? I mean, you guys will help anybody, right? So if any of our listeners want to kind of get in touch with you and see about using your services, they can do that, right?
Yeah, I think we have clients in 22 states now. So yeah, we work all across the country and happy to chat to see if we'd be a good fit for you if you do have questions about any of these specific topics.
Excellent. Cool. Chad, thank you so much for your time today. It's been fantastic. Like I said, I'm sure our listeners have just got a book of notes and they will be in touch with you, and we will continue checking out your podcast as well.
Thanks for joining us.
All righty. Talk to you soon.
All right, Aaron, that was awesome.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, just what a great way to lay out that information too. You know, that
exactly.
That ladder. Perfect. I mean, it made a lot of sense. I've been kind of adjacent to some of that stuff, you know, with my dad being a CPA for as many years as he was. But, you know, for the most part, I said, oh, my dad will figure that out. And I just let that stuff go right over my head. So kind of make it.
You've got a guy for that.
Yeah. I got a guy for that. But now he's old and retired. So I need a new guy for that. And I think we just found a new guy for that. So there we go. Awesome.
All right, Aaron. Well, hey, let's hear a word from our sponsor, Ace Transfer.
Yeah, definitely. Get that going here. I got so wrapped up into our show there that I was not prepared. Again, Eric was taking care of this for me last time. So, but yes, let's hear a word from Ace Transfer Company here.
Have you been looking to grow your business or start one in the garment decoration industry? After all, that's why you're listening, right? Ace Transfer Company is located in Springfield, Ohio, and we've provided our customers with high-quality transfers, competitive prices, and great customer service for nearly 30 years. Ace Transfer Company offers a wide variety of garment decoration services, including screen-printed transfers, contract screen printing, direct-to-garment or DTG, dye sublimation, signs, banners, heat transfer vinyl, pressure-sensitive vinyl, and more. Use your own designs or have our in-house artists assist you in creating eye-catching transfers. At Ace, we are dedicated to helping your business succeed, so print your vision at Ace. For more information, visit our website, acetransfercompany.com. Send us an email at acetransco@gmail.com. That's ACETRANSCO@gmail, or give us a call at 800-525-3126.
All right. Well, thanks to Ace Transfer. David over at Ace Transfer has been a longtime supporter of the show and a good friend of ours. So we really appreciate your support of Two Regular Guys.
Absolutely. Cool. All right, Terry. Well, a couple other things going on here. Actually, real quick, want to cover a couple of, just wanted to share this. Cindy said, thank you, Chad, for all the great information, much needed in our field.
Absolutely.
And yeah, good stuff there. In fact, you know, I don't know if I mentioned this at the top of the show, Terry, but yeah, we'd had some listeners that have been asking about this. So Marion actually is who emailed me directly about that. So hopefully she's listening in and give us a shout out if you heard this program. But I'm going to actually email it back to her to make sure that she catches this information. Great stuff for sure.
Very good.
Let's real quick here. Terry, Eric has got his latest article out, and I want to make sure people are familiar with that. He writes for Printwear Magazine, and so you can check out Eric's latest article about getting more production from your embroidery department without just adding equipment. And I'm sure Eric will post that link for us here in just a second as soon as he gets to that. But you've got some stuff happening tomorrow, correct?
I do indeed, Aaron. I'm have my complete screen printing business course here in Phoenix with Workhorse Products. That's going to be so this will be my 21st day in a row working or something like that. I'm going to wrap up the year for my screen printing classes in Chicago with Atlas Screen Supply. That will be November 16th and 17th, and that class always sells out. So if you're interested, you need to jump on that right away. And all my upcoming 2020 events are at terrycombs.com under tour dates. How about you, Aaron? What do you have coming up?
You know what we need to do, though, Terry, before I get to what I've got going on here? We've got to figure out how to take your big book of travel and somehow like make that the look of your tour dates tab, you know, like turn the page to Terry's
that'd be awesome. I love it.
We'd have to hire somebody for that, but
you mean like somebody like Eric who works for free, or
I think Eric would probably want to get paid for that. That may be a bit of an undertaking. All right. Well, so I've got a couple of things, and then there's a couple other things that I wanted to make sure that you guys are aware about for some other folks that have going on here. And Todd says, great show, guys. Thank you. Yeah, definitely good stuff from Chad. So tomorrow morning, back at 7 a.m., we'll have my Small Business Saturdays happening. So if you just go over to my Facebook page, facebook.com/aaronmontgomery.info, bright and early, 7 a.m. Central Time, and we will be chatting about. I don't really have the topic yet. I've got a couple of different ideas that I'm batting around, so probably more of an open discussion about anything going on in people's small businesses. So if you have some suggestions, I'd love to hear from you. Then next, I've got the webinar, Becoming a Digital Marketing Superhero, coming up very quickly now. It's November 11th, 2019, over at aaronmontgomery.info/marketing. And the coupons were actually good through the end of the day yesterday, but because we're doing the show one day after that here, I'm going to extend the Regulators coupon today only. So if you use Regulators when you check out, that'll save you $25 on that webinar. And I'm about 55% full right now, I think, last time I checked. So we're going to just keep it limited so that way I have an opportunity to do some one-on-one with folks afterwards, and already have some great information coming from folks. I've kind of asked them, what do you really, really, really want to get out of this? Kind of going, I hope I'm sharing the right information. And so far, so good. So
Awesome.
Yeah, that's always good. And then the other thing I want that I'm getting really excited about, behind the curtain here, you would see my notes if I didn't have the curtain up, but I'm working with Eric, the fantastic producer of our show here, Eric Campbell, and he's going to be doing a 3-hour webinar, kind of some online training here. Finally, Demystifying Digitizing is what it's going to be called, and it's going to be happening in March 28th, 2020. So we're going to have probably, I would guess, and Eric can tell me if I'm wrong here, but probably sometime this week we will have a form up that you can register to get more information about that as it becomes available. But just want you guys to mark your calendars for that, because I keep seeing on Facebook everybody talking about how they want to, they can't catch Eric at the shows or whatever, and so this is going to be your opportunity to catch him in the digital world, and so that's good. I want to also share Marshall Atkinson has his 6 steps to kill your production downtime. And that is still an introductory price of $497.50. So after up until the Long Beach show, that'll be the price. But after that, it goes up to about $1,000. So you want to get on that. It's a really great program. We talked to a gentleman at ISS Fort Worth who's already in the program, and it paid for itself pretty quickly. So. And then the last bit here, Art and Separations for Screen Printed Apparel by a friend of the show, Dane Clement of Great Dane Graphics, through the folks at SGIA. And that'll be happening December 2nd through the 3rd. So great education opportunities coming up, Terry. In fact,
absolutely.
Love having everything going on over at Atlas. I got to talk to Kayla last week, and man, some cool stuff. I'm glad you're a part of that over there. Those sounds like
they're great folks, and I love doing classes with them in Chicago and Nashville, because I probably mentioned this before, Aaron, but every employee they have must attend the screen printing class, which means that when you call the receptionist knows about the process of screen printing, and a company that puts that much into education and into having their employees fully aware is a great way to run a business.
Yeah, for sure. And the other part I love about it is that, while all of the people there at Atlas know a lot about screen printing, but they recognize the fact that it's important to, have, as much as I give you a hard time, there's nobody I'd rather learn screen printing from than Terry. I mean, you've had experience, you've done it. There's people out there that I know that have taught screen printing in the past that have never actually screen printed for a living before.
Exactly. And, right.
So you kind of go, really? Huh? So I think that's important that they look at it from that educational standpoint, that it is important to bring somebody like yourself in. They're starting to do some Corel classes with clay and things like that. So, the value they put on education is huge. And as everybody knows, we at the Two Regular Guys and the decorators community, that's what we're all about here. So that's really cool stuff. All right, Terry. Well, we perfect timing today. So good job by us. And good stuff there. So we've come to the close of another show. Thank you very much to Chad and his time today and all that great information. Make sure to check his podcast, everything he's got going on over at his website at financialsymmetry.com. And looking forward to checking in with him again, maybe as things grow. And if we get other questions about that kind of stuff, fantastic to have such a great resource in Chad there, Terry.
Absolutely. He's a great guy. We also want to thank our show producer, Eric Campbell. You can find him at ericcampbell.com. And thanks to our sponsors, Impressions Expo, Ace Transfer, and the new sponsor, Printavo.
Yeah, excellent. We really appreciate all of their support and looking forward to that. So next week, Terry, we're going to be doing something not different. I think we've done it before. And I'm still efforting with Jimmy. So I'm just calling him out now because he's giving me such a hard time about the fact that we never ask him to be on. But yet when I do ask him, I never hear back from him. So Jimmy Lamb from Sawgrass, you are on notice. Our plan is to have Jimmy and myself be the people getting interviewed by Mr. Terry Combs here. And we're going to talk about the holiday business. I know most people are probably already kind of knee deep in it, but we're going to try to give you some extra tips and extra things to be ready for. For many of us, the holiday push is a massive time of year. I know for me in the past, working with Pick the Gift, I'm already going, okay, it's time for my 12, 15-hour days coming up. So it's
Exactly.
just what it is. But hey, it's also a great time to make a lot of money. So
all right. Well,
how do we make that easy?
Yeah, exactly. That should be a great show. But Aaron, until then, I'm Terry Combs. He's Aaron Montgomery.
And we are the Two Regular Guys. Thank you for listening to Two Regular Guys. Check out our website at tworegularguys.com. That's the number 2, regularguys.com. You can also interact with us over at our Facebook page, facebook.com/tworegularguys, or send us a tweet, twitter.com/tworegularguys. And we have a YouTube page. You can find all that from our website, tworegularguys.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to spending some time with you again next week.